Chad. I made this thing called Crystal, and we're going to use it to explore artists and creative spaces around Sacramento, California, the country, and discuss those spaces with really interesting people that help contribute. Today, we have a very special guest who has contributed a ton of work to the Urban Hive, and I'd like her to introduce herself and what she does.
Thanks, Chad. Hi, everybody. My name's Fache, and I will be telling you a little bit about the current work that I have in the Urban Hive. And I'm lucky enough to be able to work with this incredible technology, which means that I and you can tour this wonderful space without ever leaving the comfort of our Zoom backgrounds. So having said that, let's get started. As you guys can see, this is a pretty incredible space that we have to work with. Really, I'm lucky to have my art elevated by that and feel.
I don't think most people know what the Urban Hive even is. It's an amazing co-working space in Sacramento, whose owners, Molly and Brandon Weber, are super invested into the art scene, and they really promote artists by putting their work on the walls of this co-working space and creating kind of a gallery, which we were just talking about. Fache, we don't really see that anywhere.
It's true. And not only are they incredibly inclusive with the artists that they promote, there's a ton of diversity. And not to mention, just as you pointed out so rightly, Chad, that there is no gallery that gets the type of foot traffic that the Urban Hive gets. And I have had my art exposed to an audience that I could never have hoped for in this space. And in fact, it's led to just a lot of feedback and sales. And I truly can't say enough about what an excellent place this is to exhibit if you are an artist. Not only is it beautiful, but it's a very, very functional space for artists. So this piece is called Little by Little, and it's acrylic on canvas. And this is part of sort of an abstract water series that is ongoing in my collection. And this piece really represents small changes, incremental changes, like the sort of things that are imperceptible in growth. Something like the growth of a plant, or maybe like the loosening of a muscle that you've been stretching, or the strengthening of something that you've been working on. And as you can see, the shape itself looks like it's taking a few steps forward and also rising up. And I guess I just really wanted to capture that sense of things changing in really small, imperceptible steps. And that's, but again, that's like I said before we started, it almost feels weird to explain these things because my story of what a piece is often the least interesting part of it. What's most interesting to me is, sorry, Chad?
Oh, nothing. I was just going to say it's so approachable, but there's like, I don't want to call it charisma, but like this piece kind of has this like, kind of presence, it has like kind of cute little legs, but the top looks like a dragon almost, right? It's just like,
I can't believe you said that. I keep thinking in my head that it looks like a weird like water spirit. I don't want to like get too deep into my nerd territory, but it's got like sort of that Studio Ghibli kind of feel to it in a way that just like it feels to me like an elemental spirit. But again, I didn't want to like impose. That's so funny that you said that, because I'm like, no, I don't need to say that. Let people have their own experience with the piece. And yet here we are kind of totally agreeing. That makes me feel like I've succeeded.
You succeeded. You definitely succeeded. You said this is like, you did a series of pieces like this that were more fluid or water-based. I guess, what was your inspiration in choosing to go that route? Or was there something that kind of led you to wanting to express that through this medium?
It's funny, yes and no, which is probably going to be my baseline for almost everything you ask me. But I end up finding myself sort of stumbling into continued representations of water. I'm not really sure why. And as you'll see as we go on, a lot of my pieces end up focusing on the environment with specifics to climate change, because how it's kind of an existential thought on a lot of people's minds these days if you're living in the world. So I think that that's continuing to emerge as a theme because water, of course, is essential to life on this planet, and there's something about it that's more, how do I say this, more elemental than the other elements in a way. It just seems the most essential of all the elements that we traditionally think of when we think of elements. And I just find myself drawn to what water represents. And there's also something very optimistic about water. There's so many positive things associated with it, just like swimming and being refreshed, and it's just so deeply programmed in that way and literally fluid. So you can kind of use it as sort of a vehicle to translate a lot of different ideas, be they peaceful in the traditional way or a little more there can be darker elements to it, as we'll see as we continue down this exploration. It's a pretty cohesive collection that I have in the Hive. I just got lucky. Just these are the pieces I had on hand to exhibit, but they all really do fit together in a sort of narrative.
I think that was like literally the perfect transition, and I'm not going to do anything else but just move to the next one, because you said, as you see in the next piece, we're going to go to the next piece. And also, thank you for answering my questions before I ask them. It makes my job so easy when I talk to you.
Oh, I'll just hijack this interview.
Thanks. Okay, so here we are. This is the next piece. I know it's referred to as the fire piece in the Urban Hive, but can you tell us more about this one? What is it called?
Yes, this piece is called How Much Longer? And it's pretty straightforward if you want to have a look. This piece, again, like I said, quite straightforward, but I've lived in California my entire life, and everybody I know, including myself, has a wildfire story. Some are more anecdotal, like sitting on your roof and watching the ash fall and thinking like, oh, it's going to get closer. And some stories are absolutely unthinkable. And the trouble with this is that every year, without exaggeration, the fire stories from friends, loved ones, strangers, families are trending less toward anecdotal and more toward unthinkable. I think at this point, we all know somebody who's lost property or much worse in a California wildfire. So that was on my mind pretty significantly. So I decided to paint it. And that was a really interesting experience because I quickly found out that this piece is not for everyone. Some people really enjoy it because it's a picture of a wildfire. And for some, that's a very powerful, moving, sort of inspirational image. But for some, especially people who have literally seen this very sight out a window or a car, it's horrifying. And that was kind of as an artist, that was kind of a fun risk to take. It's a pretty large piece, and I didn't know how it would be received. But in general, it conveys exactly what I meant it to. Then the title, How Much Longer, you can interpret that a few ways, but it pretty much means exactly what it sounds like. How much longer are we going to be able to hold this at bay? How much longer are we going to live with this sort of thing as a new normal? How much longer will we be able to run from these inevitabilities? And yeah, that's the long and the short of it.
It is long and the short. I think it's so interesting because you can make something beautiful out of something so destructive, right? Which of course is interesting in itself. But I didn't even think that like this would be terrifying for some people or heart-wrenching for them to look at, because it could represent some monumental loss, whether it's a life or a home or family's home or whatever. I didn't even think about it. I saw this, I'm like, oh, she's talking about wildfires, but like I couldn't imagine the reaction of someone who was really actually affected by a wildfire in the past year or two.
Yeah, it's I didn't think about it that much either. Without getting into too much detail, my sister was one of the people who saw something like this very close up. And when she saw this painting, she said, I hate this. Great job. I was like, oh, good. She's like, no, I looked out the window during the experience that she had. No one was harmed, thank God, but it was a very close call that she had. And she's like, yes, this is exactly what I saw out the window. This is horrifying. You nailed it. So that felt successful to me. But it's funny what you said about not considering how it would impact every, depending on the viewer, because as I painted it, I kind of thought about this. Fire is so like water. It's representative of such a range of things. It can represent, the warmth of a hearth and like a nice cozy campfire, or it can represent like utter unthinkable destruction. Can represent like love and passion, and also anger and blazing hatred. Like there's such a range of emotion in fire, and it's all strong. So it was a really fun piece to tackle, I have to say.
I'll note as we transition to your next piece, also elemental in your description with water earlier as one of those kind of fundamental forces of nature.
That's right. You're picking up what I'm laying down and saying it more eloquently than I could. But yes, I do find myself kind of focusing on the elements, and I think that's going to continue as a theme in my work. Again, it's related to climate change. It's heavy on my mind. And this one's called, well, I'll actually get to its name in just a second, but I wanted to show you this one next because it's the companion piece to How Much Longer, kind of the yin and the yang of it, because, well, its name is Curse Breaker. And I'll tell you how I settled on the name in a second because it's kind of funny. But I wanted to paint this as a companion piece to How Much Longer, the fire piece. And again, this one's pretty straightforward. It's literal, and that fire is the antidote or the curse breaker to water. But I really wanted to focus on a stark, not soothing coloring for water, just in a way to sort of illustrate the plainness and the starkness of the reality of climate change, and that the impact should be plain, and that the threat and existential trauma of it should be very straightforward. You don't usually see water in this color, and it's, again, not really soothing, not really like splishy splashy, not really like a summer's day floating in a pond. It's a bit more serious. And the reason I sort of landed on its name is I finished this the day before the 2020 election. I was kind of distracting myself. And then I realized that day, you know what, this is done. And I was thinking of Curse Breaker as its name. And I'm like, you know what, I'm going to just double down on that, kind of a Hail Mary. And it seems like that worked out.
That makes a lot of sense. The Curse Breaker's name just like has a double or triple meaning in that case. When do you decide, you mentioned this, and I think it's interesting because I think people across any creative endeavor encounter this. How do you know when you're done in general?
Oh my God.
Do you have a process? That's the hardest part for sure. I know it drives my partner crazy, for example, because he's always, he lives with the work. So he has to sort of see it progress and go up and down. And it's kind of an emotional roller coaster, I would say. And he's always asking me, this looks done. Is this done? And maybe this should be done. And that is absolutely the hardest thing. I have totally suffered from overworking things and ruining them. Like that's something that I truly struggle with. So when something, it's not an exact science. I won't even say I have a real handle on the art of finishing something. There is a certain, I can tell when I'm getting close to it being done. That's where I try to narrow the lens, I suppose, because I can really see the finish line at a certain point, and I have to not lose sight of it in that moment. That's the sort of the most dangerous part. It's almost like you can take a wrong turn and miss the exit right at the end, and that happens to me pretty consistently. But the more I work, the better I get at sort of hearing, it's listening. It really is just me like throwing a dart and really hoping that it lands. But there is a certain mindset that I try to get into when I can see the finish line. Like I'm holding the paintbrush and I'm thinking, how many paint strokes do I have left? Is it
10? Is it 20? Is it 200? And I guess I kind of try to almost just create a sort of rationing of it to myself. Like, look, you can see the finish line. You're going to give yourself a half an hour, 20 more strokes, something like that. And then pick one, stop. Now it belongs to the ages. And I almost wish I had a clearer answer for you, but it's probably the hardest part of the whole process.
I was going to ask, like, is it tied to why you're even creating in the first place? Like, what is the reason you're setting out to create this art? And like, is that finish line and your end goal, are you like maybe finding an intersection of why you started in the first place and how far along the journey you are with this specific piece or whatever piece?
Chad coming in with the really good, deep existential questions. I have an answer and I don't have an answer. That, like, as I said before, that's going to be a pretty common theme. So you asked me, like, do I have a why in like going forward and creating this work? In a way, there is no why, and in a way, it's entirely why. I should back up by saying, I never went to art school. I'm completely self-taught, and so to me, this work is, I don't know what a life not making this work is. It's just been a part of the way I view the world, a part of the way I go through life, and the way that I decide to make a piece is, this is an unsatisfying answer because of, like, inspiration comes from all types of, no, all corners of existence, but it definitely is when I decide to paint something, there's an idea floating around and it's almost like an eclipse, like how you're not supposed to like look directly at it. It's kind of like that. The idea is there and it's very bright and very interesting and exciting. And I can't like look all the way at it. I kind of have to just like sort of look near it or under it and try to catch it in that way. And if I can see the cool little silhouette through my like cereal box or whatever it is, then I've succeeded. But, when I was in college, not studying art, a friend of mine said something to me that has always stuck with me. And this kind of is the closest I can get to answering the question of why do I make this work? What am I trying to do? I was just painting for fun, like I always do. And he said, oh, what does this painting mean? And I said, oh, I don't know. And he said, well, what's the point of making art? You have to have something to say. And that hit me like a ton of bricks, like, oh God, I'm a failure. I really have to like crystallize my narrative. But he was right. But that's a balance between knowing what I want to say and also understanding that a lot of what I'm trying to convey, I can't say with words, which is why I'm using imagery. I'm trying to pin down something that cannot be pinned down, an emotion, and translate it as best I can. And if I do that successfully, the viewer will have probably not the same emotional experience that I had, but an emotional experience. And that's what my goal is to convey something, the inexorable. And that's really what making art is about for me, is if somebody sees a piece that I made and it resonates with them for their own reasons, that is so cool, because me and the viewer who aren't standing in the same room, who aren't having a conversation, are having this connection. We both are hearing something. We're both picking up something. And that's so incredible. I don't really know another way to commune with a person that's like that.
I was just going to say, you're trying to communicate something, right? It sounds like there's like an edge of our existence, right? That maybe you can't really communicate with words. But what you're trying to do through your art is communicate whatever kind of those edges. I liked your eclipse analogy where you're like just seeing like the edge of it. You're trying to like communicate what's happening on the edge through a medium that's better to use than words.
That's right.
Right? You're just like, you're communicating without words at the end of the day. You're communicating your thoughts on like what the edges of existence kind of are. This sounds really metaphysical, but I think that's what I'm interpreting from you, right?
Yes, you nailed it. Much more succinct than what I said. And that's exactly right. In fact, I ended up studying philosophy rather than art, and it made kind of sense to do that because what you describe is exactly what I'm trying to do. It's, one might say, well, what are you trying to say with this piece? And often the answer is, I can't say exactly what I want to say, which is why I'm using the imagery. What do you think I'm trying to say? And that's what I want to hear. So, and it really is about that sort of conversation because it's almost never just one thing.
You're like trying to find words through other people almost. I feel like
Yes.
right? Like you make a thing, you search for the reaction and see if that's close to what you're trying to convey. It's really interesting.
Thanks. And it's like harmony in music. It just gives like structure and support. Like I'm singing this note and you're singing this note and oh wow, it's getting better. Like it's getting fuller. I understand my work better through other people's eyes half the time,
Feedback.
which is an incredible bonus.
It is.
So this one makes sense coming after the fire piece. And okay, where do I start? So this one I painted directly after How Much Longer, the fire piece. And my whole idea with this one is that I'm going to paint a mudslide because mudslides are what come after fire. And it got away from me immediately. This is not a painting of a mudslide. No matter what I did, I was trying to make these like sort of the lines were supposed to go downward. It was supposed to be darker, more serious, more red, more brown. But no matter what I did, weirdly, it stopped looking like earth and just kept looking more like water. And the lines kept just going up. No matter what I tried to do, there was something so optimistic and ethereal about it that kept happening. This piece really took the wheel from me. And so I kind of let it happen in that way. It's not always like that, but for this one, it for sure was. I was absolutely the co-pilot back, being driven. Um, and so when I finished it, I'm like, well, this is not a painting of a mudslide. This is a painting of water. And I was really searching for the name. And normally I have the name picked out. It kind of clunks into place midway through the process. And I kind of like ruminate on it. And then when I'm seeing that finish line, as I described, I tend to really start focusing on the name and thinking like, is this matching up? Is this, maybe that's what it's like naming a kid. I don't have any children, but maybe that's what it's like. Sometimes parents are like, oh, I want to wait to meet this kid and then I'll name them. I'm like, oh, okay. Maybe I can relate in this small way. But this one really surprised me with its optimism and its ethereal nature when I was truly going for kind of the opposite. So the name of this piece is Libera Me, which is Latin, and it's a specific name for a Roman Catholic hymn that's sung at a funeral, and it's meant to be calling upon God to look favorably upon the deceased. Now, I'm an atheist, but that really appeals to me, that ceremonious idea of redemption, rebirth, and sort of interceding on behalf of something that's someone or something that has gone from us. And it's also very like serious and pomp and circumstance filled in the way that Catholicism really can be. And so this piece is a little more, it's far less straightforward than the fire one, I would say. Far less straightforward. This one is definitely about emotion. And everybody that I talk to has a different response and interpretation of it. And I think that's the way I prefer it.
I just want to say it's so interesting that you kind of went through this fire life cycle with the last two pieces, right? Wildfire, rain perhaps extinguishing, creating mudslide or whatever. And you try to portray like this mudslide or something, another catastrophic event happening because of the first, but it ended up being more optimistic than you thought it would be. And I just think there's like an underlying message there for everyone to learn, like past 4 years, whatever, like some shit hit the fan.
Oh yeah.
But I truly think, and like I'm a deep optimist deep down, like I think we're gonna figure it out, right? And I think everyone sees like, oh, catastrophe, we're at this terrible point in our country. But I truly think it's the terrible things that bring people together. And you came up with this thing that was supposed to be like more terrible, but it turned out to be something that doesn't look terrible, and it looks much more happy than it does sad. And I just think that's interesting because you started with a mudslide and came out with this. It's just so interesting.
Yeah, Dad, again, you really summed it up beautifully. It's that, I guess it's that life finds a way kind of I completely agree. It feels more like there's that tendency in nature shows or whatever to show like regrowth after a fire, and like there's specific plants that only germinate after they've been burned. So usually on nature shows or whatever, it'll be like, look, the life's coming back. Look at the new green shoots. And this is that exact same, that's an exact same spirit in this painting for sure. But for some reason, again, it's the symbolism of water and moving upward. And I think I completely agree with you. Like you can be down all you want, but that's just life. You can't predict what's going to happen, but good things do germinate almost no matter what. And it's really comforting to know that things can be looking up, no matter how much things have been going downward. And you're right to be an eternal optimist, because there's so many excellent things that come out of, a crisis in a way. When you have to confront a problem, that's when you start to find solutions. Aw, thanks. Well, I'm really glad. I actually think it would be a pretty badass piece in like a little girl's bedroom or something. I'm sure people.
It would be because it's just like, I don't want to call it feminine, but it's like gentle, right? There's like a gentleness about this where you have all the kind of organic shapes and the color tones, and it would work well. But I think your messaging there would make it hit. I'm going to turn
Right.
around because I think we have one last piece,
Yes.
and I'm going to jump over here. Oh, cool. That worked out pretty well. This is my favorite, and this is what you see every time anyone walks into the Urban Hive, and there's someone at the counter. You check in, you say hi, and this is behind them. And I don't know why I'm drawn to this. I have the least to say about this one, and I love it the most. So I want to hear what you have to say about it because it's the most interesting to me.
Oh, Chad, that means so much. Thank you. Well, not to disappoint you, but I also have the least to say about this one. It's probably the most literal apart from the fire piece. It's called Sister, and it just is an exploration of, I'm not going to gatekeep here. There's all deep relationships are deep, but I have a sister, and she's my best friend. She always has been, and I'm really lucky to have quite a few deep sisterhood relationships in my life. And this piece I finished it on her birthday last year, and it just ended up being an exploration of that type of deep friendship. There's really nothing like a really deep friendship. The intimacy of support and just creating the space for someone to be who they are and where they are. And they're in water, which is, again, a recurring theme you may have noticed. But there is something about water that is reflective of, I guess, that depth of friendship that I'm trying to convey. There's something elemental, way back in your memory, just like calm, supported, held. And there's something a little witchy about it. It's dark water, it's moonlight on the top. There's what's here in this painting is intimacy and power. And those two sort of existing side by side. That was just the mood that I was trying to convey.
It's there. I have a question about the hands because you can see
Yes.
there's some hands, and I'm going to zoom in on my side. I don't know if you can on your side, but there's some hands that are kind of poking up around the side. And why did you choose to add that? And like, if there's no significance, great. But I think it's a really nice addition. I just want to know why you did the hands.
I will tell you, I do have a reason. I can't believe I have a reason, but I do. I really wanted to make it, well, it's a sense of movement, but it made them look more alive because you are just able to see just the way that the hand relaxes is a very interesting thing. And it's very specific, the way that our hands position themselves when they relax. And it really conveys visually very efficiently that form of relaxation. Like the hand is actually a very emotional tool. Like you can really tell like what emotion that I'm trying to show you by a different position of a hand. And it just really made them feel more alive. I didn't want them to, the heads seemed really disembodied by themselves. I really wanted to make sure that I was conveying visually, um, it's a positive piece. And I didn't want there to be any type of confusion, like, are these just like severed heads floating in water or something horrible like that? No, like these are two people in a lovely, alive, calm, intimate moment. And so it was weird that the hands were what did it. So I'm really, really intrigued that you noticed that, because it was something I kind of went back and forth on when I was making the picture. And I was surprised at how efficient they were at trying at like nailing down that emotion I was trying to convey.
Yeah, and it gives them like a more space, I think, because the heads are right on top of each other, but the hand like shows you there's a body attached to it, kind of like you said. It does insinuate there's more to see.
Yes, that wow, like well put. I would say that for sure. That exactly. It sort of it pinpoints the concept of depth, I guess, that was pretty central to the theme here. And also kind of just from an anatomy standpoint, just shows you which way they're facing.
I wrote this down. The hand is an emotional tool. I don't think I've ever thought about the hand as a thing to express emotion before until like literally you said it, and that's the coolest takeaway. I'm gonna use that. I don't know how, but I like it.
Oh, please. I'll tell you, I never thought about it until it sort of fell out of my mouth. So I'm glad that it resonated.
That's why we do this. That's why we do this, because we make new thoughts.
Yeah, I'm constantly discovering things as I say them. So
That's a good skill to have. It's a great skill to have. I think that's the last piece, right? Do you have anything more you want to show here? Or are you good?
no, I'm afraid that that is all that we have for today. And yeah, I can't, I cannot stress enough how much the Urban Hive elevates these pieces. I worked hard on them. I'm proud of them, but there is nothing like an incredible space to really bring a piece to life. And I'm just so happy that I'm able to put these things here.
I'm happy that you were one of the top people on their list and they wanted to show you because we got to have this amazing conversation. Molly and everyone there thinks really highly of you. And I'm glad this worked out. This was really cool.
Yeah, me too. I couldn't be more delighted. And I'm currently working on another show. In fact, this behind me will be going up at the Urban Hive's new space downtown, IO Labs, at the end of the month. So we may have an opportunity for me to blather on about another 5 or so pieces.
I can't wait to hear. Also, how do people find you? Where should you point people if they want to learn more about you and your work? Is there anything we should throw out there for them?
Yes, I'm very easy to find. I am Fache Desrochers across all platforms, and it's. Would you like me to spell that? It's definitely. Yeah.
I'm going to link it with the video, so if anyone wants to find you, they can just click.
Yes, the best ways to find me are just going to my website, which has all this work here and much more. And my Instagram is also Fache Desrochers, and that's the best place to see the day-to-day, what's going on, the foolish filters that I find. So, yeah, but it's pretty easy to find me. I'm the only Fache Desrochers that I know, and so I'm the only one that pops up if you Google it. But my website and my Instagram are definitely the best places to see what's going on. And it's pretty much all art all the time.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure many people are going to be very interested after hearing your insights here. This was really cool. Like we got to do this and like you're at home in Sacramento. I'm in Los Angeles and the Hive is not where either of us are. I'm thrilled this worked the way I wanted it to. This is neat. I like this.
Oh, I'm absolutely thrilled, and I don't have the gift of prophecy, but I would assume that this is going to be an incredibly important tool going forward because pandemic notwithstanding, like you said, you're in Los Angeles. You can't always get to these spaces to observe things, and even in the best of times, like I can't get to galleries all around the country to show my work or exhibit or have people be able to interact with it. And this is incredible. This is really opening up new worlds for me. So I'm really, really, really excited and grateful to be on your radar and lucky enough to be showcased here.
This is fantastic. One last thing. Is there anyone that you think would benefit from this, that like you would want to see on a tour like this, or me talk with them? Is there anyone that comes to mind?
Oh gosh, yeah, a couple of people for sure. I'm like, now you put me on the spot here. My mind is racing, but there are definitely a couple of artists, and certainly artists here, that I think would truly benefit from this. If you'd like me to send you some recommendations or point you to a couple of profiles, I'd be more than happy to. Yeah, Sacramento is a real artist town, as I mentioned in our last conversation. There's a lot of really talented people working here, and the other amazing thing is that they're all just amazing people. So I would love to point you toward a couple more people that might really enjoy this opportunity.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll connect offline, and I will reach out to them. I'll show them this, and we'll go from there.
Fantastic. Oh man, what an excellent bonus.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you, Fache. This was amazing.
Thank you, Chad. I cannot stress enough how fantastic this was. I am so happy to have talked to you today. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
This is great. Thank you. We'll talk soon.
Okay, bye.
Bye.